Welcome to In Conversation. I'm your host, Steve Iverson. Today we're talking with Amy Schram, who is the Senior Community Relations Specialist from the Better Business Bureau, an organization that's been around for 106 years. And we're going to learn more about what it does, its history, and about its activities in the area. So thank you for coming on, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah. So you got in touch recently and said we're spreading the word about the Better Business Bureau, and so we got this show going. I was glad you called because I've often been curious about the organization. Everybody's heard of it, but I personally didn't know all that much about it. It's been around 106 years. What has transpired over that history? How did it start and how did it get to what it is now?
Sure. So in 1912 we were founded, and we were founded on that basis of truth in advertising because unfortunately even back then we couldn't necessarily believe that the product we were about to purchase or the service we were going to pay for was going to do what the seller said it was going to do. Right. So we just felt as though something should be done about that. We essentially established ourselves as an advertisement regulator, and we would monitor the advertisements that went out into the public to make sure that they were truthful. People were putting out advertisements that said, take this magic elixir and you're cured for life and you're cured overnight, and unfortunately we were falling for it.
Patent medicines, I think they were called.
Right, yes, exactly. So we just felt like it was untruthful, which it was, and that we should do something about it. So essentially that's the basis of what we were founded on, and we continue to monitor advertisements even today. We have individuals who their full job, their position is to look at television commercials and radio spots, listen to radio spots and look at print ads and make sure that businesses are advertising themselves appropriately. And when they're not, we will reach out to them and say, look, maybe it's just a little bit in the wording, or tell us a little bit more about what you do so that we can see if maybe we're misinterpreting your advertisement, or let's see if we can help you become more truthful and transparent. And so that's an aspect of what we do nowadays, but we do so much more. And a lot of people, you were right in the beginning, you said a lot of people are familiar with the name Better Business Bureau. Maybe people have utilized our free services, but most individuals that are familiar with us, at least up until, let's say, maybe the last 5 to 10 years or so, utilized our services after they had a problem with a product or a service or a business. What the consumer will do if they have an issue with a business is reach out to us, file a formal complaint with us against that business, and we will serve as a middleman between the two parties. We will help facilitate the dialogue and hope that there can be some sort of solution or resolution to the issue. And it's a large portion of what we do, of what our mission and vision is all about. But we want consumers to know that now, especially with technology as it's advancing and the internet being such a huge resource tool, as we were just speaking about before we started rolling, it's just such an abundant resource tool. And so we wanted to help serve as a free precautionary resource tool for consumers. And so while you can contact us after you've had a problem with that business, you can certainly utilize our free services beforehand. Our website, bbb.org, has over 5 million businesses, well over 5 million businesses that have been rated and reviewed and looked into, and there's so much information on each of these businesses that consumers can read up about and research before they make those decisions, which is, really, really, really important nowadays before we're signing contracts or handing over hefty checks or whatever it might be.
Right. The joke is that the internet has become the place where people go to complain now when they've had a bad experience. And there are a lot of sites that are devoted to rating businesses. Yes. And sometimes people will use those sites to research a business. But it sounds like you actually are working directly with businesses and rating them. How does that work?
Yeah, and we don't want it to just be about the negative with BBB as well. We don't want people to only come to us if they've had a problem. We want people to know that they can come to us after they've had a positive experience, a good experience. And that can help a business in a number of ways, and it can also help consumers behind that particular consumer to be able to see the positive experiences. Right. So we do rate businesses on a letter grade, A through F, as well as businesses that can apply for accreditation status with BBB. So of those 5 million businesses that we have on bbb.org, I would say about 420,000, give or take a few, are accredited businesses. And those are the businesses that you'll see out on the road or in their shop window or on their website utilize that BBB seal, that torch of trust. And when you see that, we tend to tell people, I tend to say to people that it's like a thumbs up. You see it, you know that some research has been done for you. And it just means that businesses have applied for that accreditation status. They're prepared to give us their licenses, their certifications, show us that they have a proven positive track record in the business to consumer community, and that they're going to uphold those 8 standards that we set forth for these businesses. But also rating, again, between that letter grade A through F, because we want consumers to know that while you may visit bbb.org and find a business that's not accredited that has an A rating, you will never see a business that is accredited that has an F rating. So it's just about what steps the businesses are taking to, produce themselves in a positive light to the community and to consumers, and then being able to monitor that and let the consumer know.
So does the BBB proactively research what businesses are in an area and contact them?
Yes.
And speak with them and say, tell us more about what you do. Would you be interested in being an accredited business? What happens in that conversation?
Sure. So most of the businesses that are accredited have reached out to us. They know the value of BBB, and so they've reached out to us and they have said, I know what that seal means. I know what it means to consumers. I know what it means to me as a consumer when I'm looking for a business. What can I do to earn that? But we do reach out to businesses as well, and most of the time it's because we've heard from consumers that have had positive experiences. They've contacted us and said, I had a wonderful experience with this particular business for these particular reasons, and then we've done the follow-up and reached out to that business and said, hey, have you considered accreditation? Because it sounds like, you're starting on the right track, or we have some information, the basis of some really great feedback on you. And so that is something that we absolutely do. And actually right now, something that's been in play for our particular BBB office over the course of the last year or so is that we are updating our database so that it can hold every single business within our service area, accredited or not. But we want consumers to be able to come to our website and find that carpenter, that roofer, that plumber, the auto mechanic, the chiropractor, the dentist, and know that every single business within their service area or within the area that business might serve is going to pop up in that search bar. And I should mention that our particular BBB office is located in Marlborough, Massachusetts, but we serve all of Eastern Mass, all of Maine, all of Vermont, and all of Rhode Island. So anyone within those areas can reach out to us regarding a business that's located and headquartered within that service area as well.
You must have a fairly big staff to be able to research all the businesses in that large area.
Yes, we're really lucky. We're actually one of the moderately sized BBBs across North America, but we have about 50 employees within our office, and they range from private investigator to research the businesses that may not be, so transparent and so trustworthy, to 3 community relations specialists who are on the road every day delivering programs and visiting with businesses, social media, marketing, customer care representatives, which is so important to us. We have the website that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we also want consumers that maybe aren't technologically savvy or don't have access to a computer, whatever it might be, visit or contact our main hotline, contact our phone number. I recommend between the hours of 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, speak to one of our customer care representatives, and you're guaranteed to speak to someone who's going to assist in some way. If there's ever an answer we don't have, we'll always point you in the right direction.
Do you have that number handy? I know we've got a reference card here.
Yes. So our website is, of course, bbb.org.
Sure.
Our email address is info@boston.bbb.org. And our phone number is 508-652-4800.
Okay. And so from what you've said, it sounds like if someone were thinking about patronizing a business, they could call the number that you just described and say, is it a good place?
Yeah, essentially, you could contact us and say, look, I'm looking for a roofer. What can you tell me about some of the roofers in my area? And what we will do is go into our database, which is exactly the database that consumers can utilize via our website, and we'll type in the type of business, the type of industry that individual is looking for, and their zip code. And we'll just let them know all the facts we know about every business that pops up within their area. And we will never say choose this business over this business, or this business is bad, or this business is, don't go with them. We will always say, look, these are the facts we know about these particular businesses, and these are the facts we know about these businesses. Please feel free to make an educated decision on who it is that you want to work with, and just know that if you do have an issue on the other end of things, whether they're accredited or not, you can contact us and we'll serve as that middleman for you. You're just less likely to have an issue with the business if you take that time to do a little bit of research on the front end of things, and also if you're choosing an accredited business, because as an accredited business, they are required to respond to complaints that are filed against them within 30 days of that initial complaint being filed.
I was just going to ask about that. Do you do some sort of assistance with negotiating a resolution to a problem if necessary? And what does that look like?
Sure. It's a lot of what we do because, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of consumers utilize us after they've had that problem. Yeah. So when they call us or when they file that formal complaint, and I should mention as well, we don't take formal complaints over the phone. We don't want anything to be lost in translation. So what we'll do for those individuals that aren't comfortable filing the formal complaint via our website is we will send an official letter, and they will fill it out through the mail and send it back to us. So that tends to take a little bit more time than, of course, doing it over the internet, which takes half of a second to send it and get it to us. But absolutely, we reach out to the business and we help facilitate the dialogue. And what's really interesting about being able to file a formal complaint against a business is that every complaint that's filed against a business gets displayed on that business's business profile, whether they're accredited or not, and it stays there for 3 years. But what's even beyond interesting to me is that not only can we as consumers see the issues that other consumers have had and what sort of complaints have been filed, we get to see the response and the back and forth dialogue between the two parties. And that's really fascinating to see what the issue was, but also how the business handled the issue, or if they handled it at all. But it's really, really interesting to see that back and forth, because sometimes it's a miscommunication, sometimes it is purposeful, maybe it's bad management or new management or whatever it might be, but to be able to see that dialogue back and forth for the consumer is really quite fascinating.
I would think so, yeah. You see some of that in some other sites that have popped up that are devoted to online reviews. Most of us are familiar with Yelp or TripAdvisor, places like that. What mostly differentiates you folks from sites like those?
Sure. I think being able...
Other than them only being around for 10 years and you being 106 years.
Exactly. There's a few things. One of the main factors, I think, is that every single complaint that's filed formally through us is vetted. We need to see a contract or your initial emails or your dialogue that was back and forth. We have to know that it's truthful. And once it's verified, I should say verified, we have to verify that there's actually an issue. And then once we do, then of course we display it and we let the public know about it. And also that it's very easy to navigate where the complaints are being seen and where the follow-up is. Because sometimes on other sites, as I've personally noticed, you could go and write a bad review or whatever it is, but it tends to also have just a strictly negative feeling as opposed to a positive. And if a business wants to respond to something negative, you can't necessarily see it along with that complaint. Maybe it's 10 steps below, or you'd have to go you have to really go fishing to find that dialogue. And so for us, it's a one-stop shop. You can see everything, and we really advocate for the positive more than we advocate for the negative. We certainly want consumers to reach out to us if they've had a problem, but we really want them to reach out to us when they've had a good experience, and advocate to the businesses that they should be letting their consumers know that they can visit their profile and write positive reviews about them. It could be positive, it could be negative, it could be just a neutral review. And also knowing that there's a big differentiation between filing a complaint and writing a negative review. So the complaint, for example, is someone contacting us and saying, I ordered a washing machine and the business delivered a dryer and they're refusing to come pick up the dryer and deliver my washing machine. They're looking for something very specific to happen. This is what I paid for, this is what I got, and it needs to be rectified. As opposed to, let's say, maybe a negative review, which is, I ordered a washing machine and they delivered it and it works fine, but I really had a bad experience with their customer service representative. So just be aware when you contact them, I didn't like the hostility or the unprofessionalism or whatever it might be. It's more opinion based as opposed to factual.
And they're necessarily asking for a resolution like,
Yes.
I need to get the thing I ordered still.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're just letting other consumers know, this is the experience I had, so just beware.
Yeah.
Whether it's negative or positive.
Sure, sure. What percentage of businesses would you say are accredited by the BBB?
That's a good question. I'm not really that great at math.
Okay,
But of the 5
that's all right. I'm not either.
Of the 5 million businesses that we have within our database, about 420,000 of those are accredited, and it's always and it can fluctuate because there are businesses that may have been accredited for 30 years, and they might lose their accreditation status because they've stopped adhering to our 8 standards of trust. So it can fluctuate, and we want consumers to know that we're listening. We want to hear from you, and it can really affect the algorithm that a business has to, the flow of the business in regards to their accreditation or not.
So you mentioned something called 8 Standards of Trust. I imagine those are at the website.
Yes.
I don't want to put you on the spot too much,
That's
but
okay.
can you give us a couple of examples of them? I
Sure.
won't ask you to name all 8 unless you want to.
I probably could, but I'll break it down to maybe 3 or 4 of
Okay.
the major ones.
Okay.
Transparency is huge. We really need these businesses to be transparent with their consumers, and to not offer the first person that walks in your door one deal and the next person that walks in something else. Any discriminatory way or for any reason at all. If you're advertising a certain product at a certain price, it should be for everybody. So that's huge, transparency. And we're transparent as well. So these 8 standards of trust can be found on our website, and we're transparent in regards to what businesses pay for their accreditation status. And the businesses pay so that the consumers don't have to pay. But you can see that on our website as well. We let consumers know, yes, there is a fee, but this is what it is, and we're not trying to hide anything from you, and this is what they get out of that once they're approved for that status. But transparency is huge. Safeguarding our personal information is way, way, way up there.
Yeah.
It's so important that we have businesses that we're working with as a consumer and, of course, as the Better Business Bureau that are taking the proper precautions for their employees and their clients and customers. We want to know what sort of cybersecurity they have set in place and firewalls with their computer programming and all of that. We don't want to walk into a business and see a bunch of checks on their desk that anyone could just walk in and see or take or something like that. So personal information safeguarding is huge for us.
I would imagine so. It's such a big problem now. I work in IT myself, and I tend to see the internet as a huge, as just full of criminal activity. Databases are broken into all the time. Government agencies, information is stolen. So it really is a crucial aspect of doing business.
It is. It is. I sort of live in a paranoid state because I deliver about 30 programs a month on identity theft. So talking about cybersecurity all the time, and it's frightening. And so as a consumer, I know I want to make sure that I'm doing business with someone who, if they have to keep my credit card information on file, do they have the proper firewall set up, or 2-step authentication, or anything like that. It's so important. It really is. To me, one of the biggest aspects of becoming an accredited business is just knowing that you're going to respond to complaints if there are any. Communication is so huge, and I know what it's like to be a consumer, obviously, and know if I have a question or a concern, no matter how extreme it is, I just want someone to get back to me, let alone if it's a formal complaint that I'm filing. I want to know that business is going to respond timely, and these businesses are required to respond within 30 days. And if they don't, their accreditation status is revoked, regardless of if they've been accredited for 3 years or 30 years. And that, to me, is really, really, really huge.
So someone could also see that by going to your website, that a business has had its accreditation revoked.
It could, yeah, absolutely. It could. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There could be, and if it's most recent, or if it's under evaluation or something like that, you would see that on their business profile. It would say, under evaluation, or under review, or whatever it might be. All that information is there. And if there's something that you can't find on our website because there's just so much information that we may want to know, contact us and speak to someone over the phone and say, look, I'm interested in this particular business and I can't find information about them, and we'll do what we can to get that information to you. And whether that means contacting the Attorney General's office or the Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs, the Federal Trade Commission. We're always sharing information with these government agencies, although we're a nonprofit organization.
Sure.
But it's important to have as much information as possible so that we can all make educated decisions.
I wondered, as we were talking, how much of an overlap there might have been between what you do and what the Attorney General's office does and other government consumer agencies. they're of different types, but they seem to have some of the same priorities, same missions.
Yes.
It sounds like you talk to each other.
Absolutely. And more recently, over the course of the last year and a half or so, our office and the Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs has been delivering joint programs to the communities as well. They have an outreach specialist, and so we've been combining our efforts and trying to just get out into the public as often as possible and educate. That's really the biggest thing. It's just informing and educating and letting people know that all BBB programs and services are free to the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
No, education is absolutely crucial, and you've mentioned cybersecurity. I'm very interested in that. It's a terribly important topic. Do you do anything that might educate consumers when there's not a particular business involved? For instance, what I've seen quite a bit over the past few years are situations where, for instance, it's often with older folks. They'll get a call on the phone. It'll say, "We're from such and such computer company. There's a problem with your computer. Please let us connect." Once they show what is supposedly a problem, they say, "We can fix it for you for $300. It's a very common scam, and they don't actually fix anything. Do you folks do any education around things like that, where it isn't a problem with a particular company, but just a general kind of scam?
Absolutely. We have a whole portion of our website called Scam Alerts.
Oh.
And what I do, as I mentioned, is go into the public and deliver between 20 to 30 programs a month on identity theft and scams and fraud. And everything I talk about is also on our website. And it's constantly being updated and enhanced with the newest scam that's coming about. And I joke that I have fantastic job security. It's just unfortunate as to the circumstances. Because
that's right.
these scammers aren't going anywhere, especially the phone scammers.
Yeah.
And it is possible that they will target specific demographics. Maybe it's the senior community, and they will target the senior community with phone calls regarding Medicare or claiming to be someone's grandchild, and they'll target specifically. Right. And it's really, really hard to hear and to deal with, because most of the time we have to let people know, unfortunately, we can't stop the calls that are coming in, but we can educate ourselves on what the tactics are that the scammers are using. And as you were mentioning, they will often call and say that they're calling from a particular computer company or software program or whatever it might be. And just to know that imposter scams are probably some of the biggest scams that are going on. They're in the top 3 realm of scams over the course of the last few years. And they'll call and they'll impersonate anyone. Our bank, our credit card company, Microsoft.
I've heard of them saying that they're from the IRS, and you have to pay us right now.
Yes. And it throws people off. Even though we know the IRS will never call us, you still get that call, and it makes you even just a little bit nervous. And what they're doing to an even bigger extreme is these scammers are contacting minority groups, and they're claiming to be the IRS or immigrant groups. And they're saying, if you don't pay this, we're going to deport you. And now, especially with all the fear that's revolving around that, they're giving away money, or they're finding ways to give money, or they're really scaring themselves into thinking that it's something that they have to do. And it's really, really nerve-wracking, and it's unfortunate. Even impersonating a charity organization. Yeah. It's very easy for someone to call and say that they're calling from a legitimate charity or make up the name of a fake charity.
It's such a big problem that I walked into a drugstore chain one day. By the register, there was a sign saying, "Are you buying gift cards to pay for computer repair service or for a tax bill? If so, please don't, and call this number instead." I thought that was a wonderful attempt to educate people.
Yes, because it's so prevalent. So many individuals are going to stores or to banks and wiring money. And when you wire money or send gift cards, it's cash, and it's very difficult to get that cash back.
Right.
More likely than not, you won't be able to. And so our banks and cashiers at particular stores are so much more aware of it now that they're able to say, we cannot do this, or let's go to the police department and see if maybe this is legitimate or whatever it might be. I try to tell people, there's that saying, innocent until proven guilty. I sort of live by the rule, guilty until proven innocent. And I'm just going to do my own due diligence, and I just tend to assume that every call that comes in is from a scammer. And I'll just find the appropriate number and call that particular business back, or call that charity back, or organization, and I'll find out for myself. And the scammers get away with so much of what they get away with in general regarding any scam because they don't think we're going to take the time to do that they don't think we're going to take the time to hang up on them, find the appropriate number for that particular business or organization, and call them back and just say, hey, did you just call?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's true. We don't want to take that time. And it never ends up taking as long as we think it will, but that's really how they get us.
No, it is. And people get caught up in the moment. They get anxious. They get frightened. And they tend to want to resolve the problem right then and there.
Yes.
If they can. And,
Exactly.
More and more, I know people who essentially don't answer their phone anymore unless they see that it's from someone who they know. Otherwise, they say, I'll call them back.
Yes.
And it's because of this.
Yes, and we actually recommend, or I recommend during my programs, if you have an answering service, let your phone ring and let it pick it up. Because if you answer once, what you do is alert the caller that you're an active working number. And not only will that individual continue to call you day in and day out because they know that you've answered at least once, but they will sell your information to more and more and more scammers. And it's just, you know, a bigger headache than we'd like to have to deal with. But it's really, really tough because sometimes we can't fight that urge to answer, or sometimes we do look at that caller ID and we see a number that looks familiar to us. But it's also very easy for these scammers to manipulate and scramble the number that appears on our screen. So be aware too that there are devices out there, there are free apps that we can download on our phone. We could download an app right now and in 3 minutes contact someone and have it look like a different number is popping up on their screen, and it's so easy to do. And these scammers most likely are calling from across the seas or across the border, overseas, whatever it is. They're not coming from within the US, and it's hard to track them down because of that.
Hard to track them down and hard to stop it because, you know, if it happens in Lexington, the Lexington police can't go to another country to arrest the person.
Exactly. And we try to explain that to people, and, you know, sometimes it's comforting to know you're not the only one. You're getting these phone calls, and sometimes it's just so frustrating that, you know, we just feel like there's got to be something. And they do catch them. You know, authorities do catch individuals. It takes a lot of information. So actually, that's where our scam tracker would come in. We have a portion of our website, and our scam alerts portion of our website called Scam Tracker.
Scam Tracker?
Scam Tracker. And we have you can visit bbb.org and find that Scam Tracker. And we want consumers to let us know about the calls that are coming in, the emails they're receiving, the text messages, any information that they have that they think could potentially be a scam, or maybe if they're not sure if it's a scam, whatever it is, report it to us. We take that information and we share it with the authorities. And we, more importantly, well, not maybe more importantly, but also share it with the Federal Trade Commission. And with all of that information, they're sharing it with the authorities. And the more information we have, the more likely it is that something could be done about it, where we could find these scammers. And by we, I mean the authorities.
Yeah, and you know, given the fact that often these activities originate in another country, what do you think it might take to put a limit on it? Are we talking about agreements between two governments? Are we talking about international law enforcement, or is that outside your wheelhouse? It's
outside of my wheelhouse, but that's exactly what it would take. It would take cooperation between both parties. It can happen. There was an identity thief, or I should say this, the FBI delivered a program not long ago in Boston, and they had mentioned that it took like 3 years to find one identity thief because they had been traveling from country to country to country. But when they did finally catch this individual, they are now serving time in every single one of those countries that they had been committing identity theft through. So it is possible. It's just all about that information. You know, there was a den in India, I think maybe 6 months ago, where they found 250 individuals making the IRS phone scam.
Oh.
And I think, you know, sometimes it just needs to be that we aren't the only ones that are being scammed. It has to be happening through other countries for authorities to think. Because most, you know, let's do something about this. Yeah. Most of the time it's scammers and identity thieves from other countries that are contacting us and not, you know, their own citizens, because they know that there is not as much jurisdiction between country to country. So they're more likely to contact us because they know, or they think, well, what can they do about it? But we're working together. Well, by we, I mean the authorities. Right. They're working together, and it's just a matter of this technology becoming so advanced and so evolved, and it's fascinating, really.
Well, it sounds like an important organization and doing a lot of good work, and I'm happy you were able to come on to tell us more about it. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, really.
Oh, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been In Conversation. I'm your host, Steve Iverson. Thanks for watching.